Jobs of the future? More robots or fewer people? It really feels like we're caught in this huge tug of war. On one side, you've got this army of robots supposedly coming for all our jobs, and on the other, a future where there just aren't enough people to do the jobs. So which one is it? Where are we actually headed?
Look, we've all had that thought, right? That little worry in the back of our minds. Is a robot, is some AI gonna take my job? It feels so personal, so urgent. It feels like the big challenge of our generation. But what if I told you that's only half the story? What if the real problem isn't robots taking jobs, but a future where there aren't enough people to fill them?
Well, it turns out the McKinsey Global Institute decided to dig into this exact problem. They did this massive, landmark study. I'm talking 46 countries, more than 800 different kinds of jobs, all to map out what's coming next. And honestly, what they found, it pretty much flips the entire humans versus machines thing right on its head.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the robot in the room. The McKinsey report is super clear on this. Automation is a total game changer, no doubt about it. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. It's not really about your job disappearing, it's about your job changing. Think about it like this. A truck driver's job might not go away, but maybe it becomes managing a whole fleet of self-driving trucks from a control center. See the difference?
And when I say game changer, I'm not kidding. The scale of this shift is just staggering. Get this. By 2030, if automation happens quickly, as many as 375 million people around the world might have to switch what they do for a living. To put that in perspective, that is more than the entire population of the United States. Just let that sink in for a second.
That's 14% of the whole global workforce. Think back to those huge world-changing shifts in history, like when we went from farming to working in factories during the Industrial Revolution. McKinsey is basically saying that the transition we're looking at right now could be just as massive, maybe even bigger.
And hey, don't think this is just about factory jobs or cashiers. Nope. We're talking about something much broader. In about 60% of all occupations, at least a third of the stuff you do could be automated. So your job title, it might stay the same on paper, but what you actually do from 9 to 5, yeah, that's almost definitely going to look different.
So what's the big takeaway here? The bottom line is we're all going to have to become lifelong learners. It's just the new reality. We'll need to get really comfortable working side by side with AI and robots. And you know what skills are going to be most valuable? The stuff that makes us human. Things like collaborating with other people, true creativity, and figuring out clever new ways to use all this tech.
All right, so that's the automation story, but this is where our whole narrative takes a huge, unexpected turn. Because while we've all been obsessing over robots taking our jobs, a much quieter, and you could argue much bigger, problem has been bubbling up under the surface. A global shortage of actual human workers.
And it's all because of this thing called prime age population decline. Now, that sounds a little technical, but it's pretty simple. It's not just that people are getting older on average. It means the actual number of people who are in their main working years is going down. It's shrinking. And here's the crazy part. By the 2050s, most people on this planet will live in a country where this is happening.
Now, this isn't just some abstract number for economists to worry about. No, this hits us right in the wallet. Just look at the data. Countries that have a growing workforce, their economies have been growing by about 2.8% a year. But for countries with a shrinking workforce, that growth gets cut almost in half. It's a simple equation, really. Fewer workers means less economic growth.
And that leads to this other huge risk, a concept called stranded capital. Let me give you an example. Imagine you build this incredible, brand new, state-of-the-art hospital, but you can only find enough doctors and nurses to staff half of it. All those empty beds, all that shiny, unused equipment, that's stranded capital. It's a gigantic investment that's just sitting there, worthless, because there's nobody to actually run it. So, you see the paradox, right? It's kind of wild. On one hand, we've got automation that could push millions of people out of their jobs. And on the other hand, we have the shrinking pool of humans available to do any work at all. It really is like worrying about a flood when you're dying of thirst. So, how on earth do these two things fit together?
Okay, and here's the real kicker. It turns out the very same countries that are getting older the fastest are also the ones where automation is set to have the biggest impact. So you look at developed economies like Germany or the US, almost a quarter of all work hours there have the potential to be automated. But then you look at a younger, growing country like India, and that number is way, way lower.
So that's the big question, isn't it? What happens when these two massive forces, automation and demographic decline, smash into each other? Is automation going to be the hero that swoops in and saves the day, filling all those jobs we don't have people for? Or does it just create a massive global mismatch, a crisis where we have the wrong skills in all the wrong places?
Now I know, thinking about both of these challenges at once can feel pretty overwhelming, but it's not all doom and gloom, I promise. The McKinsey report doesn't just point out the problems, it actually lays out a kind of roadmap for how we can navigate this crazy new world of work.
So what's the game plan? Well, it breaks down into a few key priorities. Number one, we need a strong, growing economy that's actually creating new jobs and new opportunities. Number two, we have to get serious, and I mean really serious, about retraining and upgrading skills, and not just for kids coming out of school, but for everybody. Third, we've got to make our job markets more flexible so it's easier for people to move to where the work is. And finally, number four, we absolutely need a solid safety net for anyone who gets caught in the middle of all this change.
You see, this whole worker shortage thing, it completely reframes the entire conversation. There's a great quote from the Center for Global Development that just nails it. They say we're shifting from a world where the big fear is they're going to take our jobs to a world where the big question is who's going to fill the jobs we need doing. It's a total flip.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. Maybe it was never really about humans versus machines. The real challenge, the one that's right in front of us, is how do we build a prosperous, thriving world with fewer people and smarter machines? The future of work isn't a choice between one or the other. It's about getting them to work together. And the only question left is, are we ready for that?